Previously, as Jinwoo notices a girl passing by the shop window, his eyes widen. He rushes outside, thinking, from now on, I'll probably continue to question whether I should remain here on Earth. Meanwhile, young Cha Hyen thinks, did ice cream always smell this good? As Jinwoo watches her, he remembers everyone for whom he fought against the enemy alone, saying, if there's a reason to remain in this world, then it's probably because there are still people I love here, and people who love me are still here as well. That alone is enough reason for me to stay, he adds. I'll stay here and find more reasons not to leave. As Cha Hyen turns toward him, the two lock eyes in silence. The scene moved to a police station. Woo Jinchul, now in his fourth year as a criminal investigator, lost in thought. He could not shake a vague sense of loss. It was as if he were forgetting something important. No matter how hard he tried to recall it, nothing concrete came to mind. The more he searched his memory, the heavier that hollow feeling became. A junior investigator approached and handed him a cup of coffee, quietly asking if something was bothering him. Wu offered a faint smile, accepted the coffee, and thanked the junior. Inwardly, he told himself that a busy person had no time for sadness. He should focus on his work. Back inside Criminal Investigation Team 2's office, the atmosphere felt tense. As he walked among the junior officers, Wu noticed a man who was trembling with fear. He asked the officers who the man was. The man suddenly cried out, his voice unsteady. He said a monster, a shadow, had risen from the ground and told him that if he did not turn himself in within 24 hours, he would regret being alive. The man pushed himself to his feet and begged to be locked up, insisting it was all his fault and pleading for the investigators to take him in. Wu stared, stunned, and asked whether all of them had seen the same shadow. The man answered firmly that yes, they had all seen it. Wu wrestled with the thought of how he would report such a claim to his superiors. At that moment, a senior officer interrupted, telling Wu to leave the formal reporting to the juniors and to join them in the meeting room. Later, in the meeting room, Wu listened as his superior explained the situation. Visibly shaken, Wu asked what the senior meant by releasing the suspects instead of formally charging them. The senior spoke softly. Why would they do that? Glancing toward the window as if wary of eavesdroppers, and warned that someone might overhear them. Looking out the window for a beat, he added that the plan was to release the suspects but keep them under observation for the next 24 hours. Wu objected, insisting the suspects were talking nonsense. He suspected they were high on drugs and that the monster stories were side effects. Investigator Kim cut in. Nothing had shown up on the suspects' drug tests. He said the National Forensic Service had even double-checked the results. Puzzled, Wu watched as the senior leaned in and asked whether he really believed that a number of unrelated people had suddenly seen the exact same thing and then turned themselves in. The senior reminded everyone that higher-ups were pressuring the team to find out what was going on, and that so far they had no solid leads. We need evidence, the senior said. Letting the suspects talk freely, he argued, was the best chance to get it. Wu frowned and voiced his concern about the risk. What if something actually happened while they were letting them speak? The other officers burst into laughter at the idea. One teased, asking if Wu had suddenly started believing in ghosts. Kim added with a smirk that he didn't expect Wu to be so emotional. The senior investigator tried to reassure everyone. He said nothing would happen. They would choose one suspect, take him to a quiet warehouse, and monitor him closely. If the suspect tried to escape, they would stop him. And if the monster actually appeared, they would finally have concrete evidence. The senior finished by asking for a volunteer. If anyone felt uncomfortable, he said, they didn't have to go. Wu answered firmly and without hesitation. He would go as well. The scene shifted to a warehouse. Inside, one of the suspects was panicking, collapsing to his knees and pleading with the investigators. He begged them not to do it to him, crying out that he was going to die. The senior investigator answered with a firm command for the man to sit still. They needed to confirm what was happening. The suspect, however, kept repeating that he was going to die, his terror never subsiding. Growing frustrated, the senior snapped at him, asking how he expected to die when the team was standing right there guarding him. The senior turned to his colleague and asked how much time remained until the 24 hours were up. Investigator Kim checked his watch and reported there were about 10 minutes left. As the minutes ticked away, tension thickened in the warehouse. An unnatural cold seemed to creep through the air. Wu observed everything in silence and thought that something about the place felt wrong. It didn't feel normal. A short while later, Kim announced, "It looks like it's time." The senior looked around cautiously and asked, incredulous, if anything was happening yet. Everyone scanned the warehouse for any sign of an anomaly. The trembling suspect, confused, asked why nothing was happening. The senior glared at him and accused them of staging it. "Did you guys all get high together or something? Don't drag this out. Tell us what really happened." With a shaky voice, the man at last answered. There had been 4 of them at first. They really had seen it that day. Suddenly, Wu felt an overwhelming surge of instinct. His hair rose and his muscles tensed. He shouted for everyone to get back. Without warning, shadows burst up from the concrete. A whip-like shadow lashed out and slammed both the senior investigator and Kim into the wall. They crumpled, unconscious. The suspect, now sobbing and utterly paralyzed by fear, watched in horror as 3 shadowy creatures rose from the floor. Wu's eyes widened in disbelief. Monsters! They had actually appeared, and there were 3 of them. The suspect screamed, begging for help, but the shadows struck with brutal speed. Blood sprayed across the warehouse as his cries were cut off. One of the creatures, an ant-like shadow, wasted no time devouring the man. Frozen in place, Wu watched as the shadow ant turned toward him, raised a limb as if to wave, and then, shockingly, smiled. Stunned, Wu wondered to himself whether the ant had just smiled at him. Even more unnerving, he somehow knew that look meant the creature was pleased to see him. Moments later, the shadow sank back into the ground and vanished. Silence returned to the warehouse. Only a spreading stain of blood marked where the man had stood. Still shaken, Wu whispered, "Why?" He thought to himself that it felt strangely familiar, as if he had faced something like this before. The story moved to the precinct, where the chief erupted in anger as he berated his junior investigators. The suspect who had turned himself in had vanished without a trace, and to make matters worse, they had let themselves be knocked unconscious. Turning his glare on Officer Wu Jinchul, the chief demanded whether Wu remembered anything about what had happened to the suspect. After all, Wu had been the one to call the ambulance. Wu lied without hesitation, telling the chief that when he regained consciousness, his colleagues were already unconscious, and that he had no clear memory of the incident. The chief, frustrated but pragmatic, ordered them to keep quiet about the event since no official report had reached the higher-ups. He gave them a cover story for their injuries. Tell anyone who asks that they had been hurt while investigating a gang from the Guro district and that the injuries were the result of an accident. Both officers nodded and accepted the instruction. Later, inside Criminal Investigation Team 3's office, Wu sat at his computer and dug through the police database. A junior colleague noticed and asked whether he was still looking into the self-surrender cases the chief had explicitly told them to drop. Wu admitted that he was, not on official orders, but out of personal curiosity. As Wu scrolled through the list of recent reports, his colleague reacted in surprise. So many people had turned themselves in, and they'd done it at different police stations. Wu simply nodded and said it all tied back to the same thing, the shadowy figure they'd been hearing about. The junior officer looked closer at the dates and pointed out an odd pattern. The number of self-surrenders had spiked sharply between late February and early March. Wu asked if that meant anything. The junior hesitated, then offered a small, seemingly irrelevant memory. His aunt had once owned a tiny book rental shop, and business always dipped around that time of year because the school term was starting. Wu didn't dismiss the memory. He told the junior it wasn't useless and that he'd keep it in mind. The scene then shifted to a school. Students streamed through the gates as the day began. Among them was the new transfer student, Jinwoo. In the principal's office, the principal briefed teacher Park about the new student's file and a troublesome reputation. As Park reviewed the paperwork, he noted the basics. The boy's father was a firefighter, his mother a housewife, and his grades appeared decent. Then Park read the detail that made him frown. The The student had allegedly left home for 2 years after finishing elementary school and had been away during his first year of middle school. The principal asked whether Park could handle someone with that kind of history. Park flashed a confident grin and reminded the principal why they called him the Cobra, assuring him he would straighten the boy out. The story fast-forwarded to the school grounds where all the students had gathered. When a loud voice called for silence, the crowd fell still. Standing among the students was the new transfer, Jin Wu. Park spotted him in the crowd. Though he had been warned about the boy's past, Park was confident he could reform him, and used the dress code to make an example of him when he noticed Jinwoo wearing gloves on campus. Park called out and demanded to know why the student was wearing gloves at school. The moment Jinwoo turned toward him, Park's expression shifted dramatically. A deep, oppressive sensation washed over Park, an almost physical presence of darkness, a sea of shadows radiating from the boy. For a heartbeat, he felt exposed and alarmed. Park turned away, ordered the students to stand straight, and walked off while his thoughts raced. Had he really seen that, or had he imagined it? At Jinwoo's side, Bellion materialized quietly and told him in a low voice that the teacher had been able to see them, the shadows and two. Jinwoo listened, and the thought crept into his mind that perhaps his influence was beginning to leak into the world around him. The scene shifted to a classroom where students were chatting and settling into their seats. Jin Wu sat quietly with a book when a fellow student walked over and asked whether the quiet boy was Jin Wu. The student introduced himself as Yonggil and explained they had been classmates back in middle school. As Yonggil and Jinwoo talked, a group of other students started to approach. One of the boys told Yonggil to step aside, then the group closed in around Jinwoo. One of the boys tried to intimidate him, taunting that Jinwoo thought himself a big shot. Another boy pointed at Jinwoo's single glove and demanded to know why he was wearing only one, adding that he wanted to try it on. Jinwoo did not reply, which only irritated the group more. One of them pushed further, asking whether he could even hear them and pressing him again to remove the glove. The boys then suggested, nervously and crudely, that he must be hiding a tattoo under the glove. At that moment, Baru reached out telepathically and asked Jinwoo for permission to rip them apart for insulting him. Jinwoo quietly ordered Baru to stand down. He then began to remove the glove, doing so deliberately and without haste. As the glove came off, the bullies' faces twisted into expressions of horror. What they saw was a hand badly burned and scarred. Seeing their reactions, Jinwoo realized this was the one wound on his body he could not heal. An injury inflicted during his battle with Antries, the Monarch of Destruction. He thought to himself and made a pointed remark about whether they had ever seen a burn before. The boys stumbled backward, suddenly nervous and insisting it had all been a joke. They begged him not to take it so seriously. One muttered that he should just put the glove back on because the sight of that hand would haunt his dreams. As the boys tried to hurry away, Baru lunged at them, startling Jinwoo and causing him to wonder what Baru was about to do. Before Baru could reach the group, Jinwoo used his authority to manipulate their shoes, forcing them all to trip and fall to the ground. Other students burst into laughter at the bullies' sudden embarrassment as they scrambled to their feet. Jinwoo allowed himself the smallest smile, thinking that the trick had been done just for fun. Later, as Jinwoo and Yonggil walked together, Yonggil remarked on how much Jinwoo had changed in the 3 years since they last met, noting that Jinwoo had not flinched back there and asking if he had been working out. Jinwoo nodded and said he had trained a lot while he was away. Yonggil then asked whether Jinwoo planned to join any sports clubs. Jinwoo answered with a slight smile that there was one club he was considering. The scene moved to the school grounds where Choi Dae-woong, captain of the track and field team, looked confused when Jinwoo asked to join the club. Glancing at Yonggil, Choi asked if both of them wanted to join, but Jinwoo made it clear he was the only one applying. A few club members sauntered over and mocked the idea, remarking that it was rare to see a new student come all the way to the sports field just to join the team. Ignoring the sarcasm, Choi asked whether Jinwoo was a student athlete or had any track experience from middle school. Jinwoo simply replied that he did not. One of the club members frowned and said the team was made up of trained student athletes. He wondered why someone with no experience would want to join. Jinwoo answered calmly that there was someone he wanted to meet at a tournament. Thinking of Cha Hai-in, Jinwoo recalled she was still in middle school at that time, but he believed she was skilled enough to enter the regional tournament. He remembered that she had once been an excellent track and field athlete before giving up that dream to become a high-ranking hunter, and he hoped that by entering the middle and high school tournament, he might meet her naturally. The other students remained unimpressed, but Choi intervened and offered Jin Wu a conditional chance to join. Choi pointed to another student and explained that the boy was considered the weakest runner among the second years. Choi set the rule. If Jin Wu could beat that student in a race, he could join the team. Jin Wu studied the designated runner. Though the boy looked thin, his strong legs and steady posture suggested he was not truly weak. Jin Wu accepted the challenge. Some club members scoffed, muttering that they did not even recognize the runner who had placed third in last year's regional competition, and they questioned whether Jin Wu could simply walk onto the team. Choi laid out the stakes. If Jin Wu won, he would be in. If he lost, he would be responsible for the team's laundry and cleaning duties for a month. The scene cut inside the school building where a colleague asked Park Ji-sul if he was feeling better. Park replied that he was fine. He just needed a smoke. Later in the break room, Park looked out the window while smoking and noticed Jin Wu running far ahead of the track team. Surprised, Park turned to another teacher and asked why Sung Jin Wu was running with the students and whether he was part of the club. The other teacher explained that Jin Wu was a new freshman who had shown up asking to join the team. They had decided to test his speed, and he had been so good they could not refuse. The teacher added that they were now checking Jin Wu's endurance and that the laps he was running had already reached 20. Park nodded and started to leave, but then froze in shock. His eyes widened as he saw a shadowy aura trailing Jin Wu as he ran, an indistinct darkness following the boy's stride. Park stared, disturbed and questioning whether what he was seeing could be real. Then to his horror, Baru appeared outside the window in his monstrous ant form and let out a sudden, piercing screech. Park Ji-sul screamed and collapsed, fainting on the spot. The teacher beside him panicked and hurried over, asking if Park was all right. Outside the room, Igris turned to Baru and scolded him, saying he had warned him not to do something like that. Baru shrugged and indicated that, well, now they knew this human could truly see them. The scene fast-forwarded to a small restaurant where Wu Jinchul met a colleague over a meal. The colleague pressed Wu about why he was still looking into the self-surrender cases, wondering aloud who would come to a station simply to cause confusion, and more importantly, whether Wu had seen anything unusual that day. Wu tried to brush the question off with a vague denial, but the colleague pressed him again, specifically naming the day the suspect had vanished from the warehouse and asking whether Wu had seen anything then. Wu conceded that he had seen something odd, a creature that, to him, resembled a giant ant. He said he wasn't certain what it had been, only that its appearance had been ant-like. The colleague reacted with shock and asked if Wu was really saying that giant ant monsters had appeared. A passerby who had overheard the conversation approached and asked whether the creature Wu described had a human body and an ant's head. The next day, the camera moved to the school sports ground where the track and field team was out doing laps. Their captain, Choi, told the team that their aim was to dominate the country. Among the runners, Yonggil struggled to keep up. Seeing him panting and falling behind, Jinwoo asked Billion why he even followed him here if it was going to be so difficult for him. Billion replies, "Humans are foolish creatures, my liege." To give Yonggil a hand, Jinwoo quietly used one of his abilities on him. Yonggil immediately felt a rush of energy and a strange heat spreading through his body, wondered what was happening, and then exploded into a sprint that left the others behind. From a distance, Park Ji-sul watched the practice. He remembered the night before when, drunk, he had half told Wu Jinchul and another officer about ant monsters before stopping himself and apologizing for being drunk. Wu had stopped him then and asked him to explain more. Back in the present, Park Ji-sul stared at Jinwoo. Jinwoo, noticing the prolonged stare, thinks that Park has been observing him quite openly lately. Bellion appears beside him and suggests that they should just erase Park's memory and remove his powers, but Jinwoo refused for now. They needed to observe Park a little longer. The scene shifted to the school entrance as Wu Jinchul arrived. He thought the strange cases, the criminal who had turned himself in saying he saw monsters, and the student incident that only one teacher had witnessed. He wonders how he's supposed to ask a student about monsters without sounding insane. While he stood there, a shadow skittered across the pavement and startled him. He muttered that there was definitely something odd happening. Inside the classroom, Jinwoo sat quietly and wondered whether Wu had seen the shadow Jinwoo had stationed nearby. Soon Wu entered and spoke briefly with the teacher, explaining it wasn't a serious matter. He simply wanted to ask a few questions to a student named Sung Jinwoo. The class grew tense at the presence of an investigator. One student whispered that an investigator had come and wondered what Jinwoo had done now. Wu and Jinwoo moved to a quieter corner of the school grounds so the conversation could continue privately. Wu apologized for pulling Jinwoo out of class. Jinwoo said it was fine and thought to himself that it had been over a decade since they last met, although telling that to Wu directly would have felt strange. Wu observed Jinwoo closely, noting that the boy's eyes seemed older than his years. Without wasting time, he produced a sketch of the ant-like creature and asked Jinwoo whether it looked familiar. Jinwoo examined the drawing and said he had seen something like it before. Wu was taken aback and pressed for details. He wanted to know what Jinwoo had seen, what the creature was, and who Jinwoo really was. Collecting himself, Wu then explained that he had been working the case for a while and asked Jinwoo to tell him anything he knew about the creature. Jinwoo responded coolly that the drawing looked like a monster from a special effects TV show kids liked, an answer that disappointed Wu. Wu quietly took the notebook back, thanked Jinwoo, and told him he could return to class. He added that he had already cleared the interruption with the teacher. As Wu turned to leave, Jinwoo asked if he could keep the sketch. Baru objected briefly, but Wu conceded and handed the picture over. After Wu left, Igris appeared and asked Jinwoo why he hadn't simply told the truth. Jinwoo replied that forgetfulness was a blessing granted to humans, even if that forgetfulness had been engineered by men using a tool of the gods. Back in the classroom, Jinwoo found himself surrounded by curious female classmates who peppered him with questions about the investigator. Jinwoo deflected, saying Wu was simply an acquaintance who had come with a private matter. The girls then mentioned a rumor going around the boys' side that Jinwoo had a surprisingly muscular build, and they asked whether he worked out. Before Jinwoo could answer, an unseen hand swept the girls aside. A group of students strolled in smirking, mocking Jinwoo about his sudden attention, and joking that even the police were visiting him now. One of them taunted Jinwoo, asking if he intended to call the police if they picked a fight. Before the bully could finish, a strong arm wraps around his neck from behind, pulling him into a chokehold. Captain Choi of the track and field team had arrived with several teammates. Choi glared at the bullies and demanded to know whether they had business with the team's ace. Jinwoo raised an eyebrow and asked what they were doing in his classroom. Choi responded that they had come to stop him from losing his temper and beating up the four troublemakers. Jinwoo told him not to joke. Choi laughed it off and mentioned a welcoming party for new members later that day, asking whether Jinwoo and Yonggil were free after school and urging Jinwoo to attend. As the track team escorted the bullies from the room, Jinwoo asked what they planned to do to them. Choi grinned and answered that the punishment would be a light jog around the track, something he called character building. Later, heading to the newbie party, Choi teased Jinwoo about whether they should give the bullies a little scare while they were at it. Jinwoo smiled, shook his head, and said it wasn't necessary. He thought they had already learned their lesson. As they walked, someone called Jinwoo's name. He turned and saw Wu Jinchul approaching. Wu asked whether they could continue the earlier conversation. Jinwoo agreed, though Choi called out that he was taking Yonggil hostage until Jinwoo returned for the party. Jinwoo laughed, made a quick excuse about keeping the meeting short because his friend was waiting, and followed Wu to a quieter spot. Wu took a deep breath and, with a serious tone that betrayed his emotions, addressed him formally as Hunter Sung Jinwoo, words that made Jinwoo narrow his eyes because he sensed there was weight behind them. The story jumped back a few hours to the moments just after Wu had handed Jinwoo the sketch. At first, Wu thought giving the picture away had been a small, harmless gesture, something trivial he would forget by the next hour. But as he walked away, a nagging unease told him it had been a foolish thing to do. That's when he suddenly heard a voice. "Association Chairman, do you trust me?" Startled, Wu spun around, but there was no one in sight. He glanced up the stairs and heard another voice answer. It was his own. "I trust you." In an instant, a torrent of memories crashed into him. Wu collapsed to his knees as fragments of past, present, and future flooded his mind. Through Sung Jinwoo's eyes, he glimpsed a world he had once forgotten. Battles, gates, monsters, hunters, rulers, and monarchs. He remembered having asked Jinwoo whether he had planned to fight all of it alone, and Jinwoo's simple answer, yes, since the memories of a higher being aren't affected by the flow of time. Back in the present, Wu and Jinwoo walked side by side in silence for a moment before Wu asked quietly how long Jinwoo had been fighting in that dimensional crack. Wu reflected that official records listed Jinwoo as missing for 2 years, and he could not reconcile that with the scale of the conflicts Jinwoo had hinted at. Jinwoo answered plainly that he had been fighting for 27 years. Wu reacted with shock and then asked whether Jinwoo regretted any of it. Jinwoo replied that he did not regret it. Even if he had to make the same choice 100 times, he would choose it again. Wu smiled and observed that Jinwoo now seemed to be enjoying life. Jinwoo admitted he was satisfied with how things were, though he noted wryly that he had to keep switching bodies because he no longer aged. The realization hit Wu hard. Jinwoo had effectively gained immortality, eternal youth and power that skirted the divine. Yet he still chose to live quietly among ordinary people. Wu asked whether Jinwoo had any plans for the future, and whether he had ever considered joining their side, the police. He added that recently many criminals they caught had complained that the shadow creatures left them no space to act or even to breathe. Jinwoo chuckled and said that if he joined the police, there would be no work left for anyone else. Wu smirked and told him that in fact, that was exactly the kind of world they had been trying so hard to build. Jinwoo paused to think and told Wu he would consider it. As Jinwoo started to walk away, Wu called after him that he would be waiting for him to join the force. Jinwoo answered that Wu should not wait. He understood the job was full of work, but came with little pay. Time passed. Then late in April, something strange began to occur far from their city. In the desert region of Western America, a tired traveler, sweating under a blazing sun, dialed emergency services. He told the operator he was not lost, but that he wanted to report something he had witnessed. The operator asked whether the situation was urgent and where exactly it was happening so the proper team could be dispatched. The traveler hesitated, searching for words to describe what he saw, and then said there were cracks, many of them, and that something felt like it was about to break. When the operator asked where the cracks were appearing, he answered plainly that they were in the sky, that the sky itself was crumbling. Meanwhile, at Sung Jinwoo's home, Jinwoo and Igris were buried in study when Jinwoo suddenly sensed an unfamiliar presence approaching from another world. The scene shifts to a quiet cafe. Across from Jinwoo sits the vessel of a ruler. He greets Jinwoo respectfully, addressing him as the Shadow Monarch. Jinwoo's eyes narrow as he asks if the recent disturbances on Earth are the doing of the rulers. The vessel shakes his head. He explains that this is not how rulers travel between worlds, and Jinwoo already knows that. Jinwoo presses further, demanding to know who is trying to break into Earth. The ruler's vessel reveals the truth. The intruders are ancient beings, ones who once invaded the ruler's world, only to be driven back by the army of the sky. But now they have set their sights on Earth. Jinwoo questions why they would choose this world. The answer comes cold and sharp. They are a race of giants who consume the life and minerals of living planets. In the ruler's world, they are feared as titans. Their objective is simple: devour Earth. Jinwoo reflects that such beings had never attempted to come here before, until the cup of reincarnation was used. The ruler confirms it. In the erased timeline, these titans had originally been meant to battle the rulers, but now something has shifted. Jinwoo wonders aloud if he himself is the cause. The vessel admits that the rulers believe the titans are chasing after the traces of the immense power now residing within Jinwoo. The rulers have already dispatched the army of the sky toward Earth, but Jinwoo shakes his head. He tells the vessel it's already too late. Even if a gate were created now, it would take years for the army to arrive. By then, Earth would already be destroyed. Resolute, Jinwoo declares that he will handle them himself. The scene shifts to the western desert of America. The U.S. government has sealed off the entire region where the sky is breaking apart. Teams of scientists and experts have been deployed, but none can explain the phenomenon. One veteran researcher, a man who spent 30 years studying atmospheric anomalies, admits to a military officer that he has never seen anything like this. The officer tries to reassure him, saying that if anything comes out of the sky, the military will handle it. But before his words can even settle, tanks and military vehicles suddenly begin to rise into the air. Far in the distance, Jin Wu stands silently, using his ruler's authority to clear the battlefield. His voice cuts through the tension. There's no point in leaving the military here. Against what's coming, their weapons would be useless. Once the ground is cleared, Jin Wu tilts his head back, eyes locked on the sky. He says quietly to himself, the stage is set. He can already sense it, a powerful hunger drawing closer. An enemy that has come to devour this world. With a flick of his hand, Jin Wu summons his twin daggers, Kamish's Wrath and Demon King's Dagger, along with the Shadow Sword. His aura darkens, his intent sharp. He declares that from this point onward, the ones arriving will face not just a monarch, but a monarch who is also a hunter. Meanwhile, the military forces, still floating helplessly in the air, are carried by Jin Wu's authority and gently placed far away from the battlefield. As the soldiers regroup, one officer, his voice trembling, mutters in shock, "What on earth is happening here?" When he lifts his gaze to the horizon, his words catch in his throat. A massive gate has formed in the sky, its sheer size blotting out the heavens. Back at the battlefield, the gate fully opens, and from within, enormous figures begin to emerge. The Titans have arrived. One after another, colossal giants step through, shaking the ground with their descent. And then, their leader appears, a Titan with massive wings, soaring through the air, descending directly toward Jin Wu. Hovering above him, the winged Titan's voice rumbles across the battlefield. It asks if Jin Wu truly intends to face them alone. Jin Wu, standing unfazed, answers with calm defiance. To him, it doesn't look like he's alone. His shadow suddenly spreads, blanketing the entire desert in black. From that abyss, an army begins to rise. Knights clad in armor, towering beasts, assassins, mages, generals, all of them emerging from the darkness. The Shadow Army has returned to stand beside their monarch. As the ground trembles beneath the weight of thousands, Jin Wu raises his blade. His voice resonates with absolute command. Let's begin. The scene cut to the White House. The president sat in his office, tense and troubled by reports of an unexplained phenomenon unfolding in the desert. Reports that cracks had appeared in the sky, and strange, unknown entities were emerging from them. He replayed the facts in his head and wondered whether the situation could be contained. Before he could dwell on it further, Officer Harrison arrived and told him the incident had been contained for now, and that all details would be presented in the briefing room. Inside the briefing room, Harrison played footage captured by reconnaissance drones. The room watched in stunned silence as the video unfolded. Disbelief and panic spread through the attendees. Someone in the room demanded to know what was happening and who the man at the center of the footage was. The president turned to Harrison and asked for answers. Who that man was, where the troops were, and why a civilian seemed to be at the heart of the event. Harrison admitted they were still trying to figure those very things. Back in the desert, Tusk finished charging a massive well of magical energy and released it in a single, devastating blast that streaked into the sky and obliterated everything in its path. Both forces, the Titans and Jin Wu's Shadow Army, surged toward one another. Despite the Titans' size and ferocity, Jin Wu's army proved vastly stronger. Jin Wu ran forward with lethal speed, cutting through colossal Titans with precise, brutal strikes. Mid-run, Jin Wu summoned his Shadow Sword. The blade swelled to enormous size as it gathered dark power. With a raised arm, he unleashed a sweeping, colossal strike. One by one, the attacking Titans began to fall beneath the impact of that attack. A colossal flying Titan managed to intercept the sword and smirked at what it called a trivial trick. It glanced down to the battlefield and noticed Jin Wu preparing another assault. Jin Wu's hand began to transform, morphing into a gargantuan shadow claw. He slammed that appendage down with such force that it pinned the Titan to the ground while Jin Wu landed beside it, calm amid the settling smoke. From the dust around the pinned Titan, a pair of glowing red eyes opened. The Titan sneered, marveling aloud at the unexpected talent of such a small planet and taunting Jin Wu about the need for mana to unleash full power. It bragged that Titans must shrink themselves to fight at their greatest potential, and suggested Jin Wu beg for forgiveness. Before the Titan could finish its taunt, a blade flashed across the dust and cut it down. Marshal Bellion had arrived and dispatched the Titan with brutal efficiency. Bellion turned toward Jin Wu and reported that he had intervened. He asked if Jin Wu had been conversing with that particular adversary. Jin Wu shook his head and told Bellion that the monsters were far too arrogant and that they would require special attention. He instructed Bellion to take care of them. Bellion acknowledged the order with a nod and charged back into the fray, slicing through Titans with ruthless speed as the battle intensified. The scene moved to a meeting room. Everyone watched the battle footage in stunned silence as the screen replayed the desert clash. The president asked whether they had identified the man at the center of the footage. When no answer came, he noted how effortlessly the individual had handled the monsters. It looked like a scene from a movie, not real life. He pushed the intelligence team for a way to identify the man. David Brennan, the intelligence director, admitted that, realistically, there was no straightforward way to identify him. Then Brennan proposed an unconventional route. Consult Madame Norma Selner. The president asked what he meant. Brennan explained that Selner had a long history of producing answers when conventional intelligence failed. She would know, or at least point them toward the truth. The scene shifted to South Korea, where the national track and field tournament preliminaries were underway. Sung Jinwoo stood with his team, taking in the surroundings. Jinwoo's gaze fell on a nearby student nicknamed Iron. Kim Cheol noticed that Jinwoo was watching him. A senior on Kim Cheol's team asked whether he was warming up. Kim Cheol replied that he was, just in his own way. The rival team's captain approached Choi Dae-won and taunted him for putting a first year on the main squad, suggesting Woo Sang-in's absence had left them desperate enough to field a freshman as the ace. Choi answered with quiet confidence, promising the rival captain his jaw would drop when they saw how good the first year truly was. The rival captain scoffed and boasted that his own team had a monstrous newcomer as well. Another attempt to rattle Choi's squad. As Kim Cheol glanced toward Jinwoo, an inexplicable impulse washed over him. Sweat beaded on his brow, and an unsettling compulsion made him want to kneel before a student he had never met. He chastised himself inwardly, trying to dismiss the feeling as ridiculous. But then he suddenly snapped aloud, startling those nearby. Fellow students asked if he was all right. Kim Cheol muttered that he was fine and shoved off toward Jinwoo, trying to shake off the strange sensation. Approaching Jinwoo, Kim Cheol glared and demanded that if Jinwoo had something to say, he take it somewhere else. His tone a mixture of anger and confusion. Captain Choi and the rest of Jinwoo's team interjected with teasing warnings, urging Jinwoo not to lose his temper and reminding him to be gracious if he spared the boys' lives. Jinwoo calmed them, assuring everyone that nothing would happen. Later, in a quiet corner, Kim Cheol grabbed Jinwoo by the collar and demanded to know whether Jinwoo thought he was a joke. Jinwoo's shadows watched the exchange with keen interest. Bellion, one of the strongest among the shadows, suggested leaving Kim Cheol's humiliation to him and promised to make sure the boy would never behave that way again. Suddenly, Kim Cheol froze mid-breath. Tears sprang to his eyes and, without understanding why, he collapsed to his knees, trembling and asking himself aloud why he was kneeling. Jinwoo observed the scene coolly. He noted that Kim Cheol was still a normal human, not a member of his shadow army, and judged there was no need for excessive force or spectacle. As Jinwoo began to walk away, Kim Cheol called after him in a stunned, half-pleading voice, wondering if what he'd felt was love. Jinwoo, baffled by the question, dismissed it as nonsense, and then took action to defuse the situation more permanently. Using his authority, Jinwoo altered Kim Cheol's memory. He made Kim Cheol remember that when he had tried to pick a fight, he discovered Jinwoo and his father were acquaintances. Jinwoo also planted a new impulse, that Kim Cheol should let go of his hostility and live more kindly. Before ending the alteration, Jinwoo added a final, weighty thought to Kim Cheol's mind, that he had been among those who fought to protect the world, and that he should take pride in that fact. Then Jinwoo snapped his fingers to seal the change. Kim Cheol slowly came back to himself, disoriented and looking around as if waking from a dream. Over the loudspeaker, an announcement called all runners to the track. The middle school division preliminaries were about to begin. The story moved to the United States, where Intelligence Director David Brennan arrived at Norma Selner's residence and greeted her politely at the door. Selner smiled and invited him inside. As they crossed the threshold, Brennan noticed the warm scent of food lingering in the air and asked if she'd been in the middle of a meal. Selner replied that she wasn't. A guest had arrived shortly before Brennan did. Brennan said he would be brief and got straight to the point so he wouldn't take up more of her time. Calmly, Selner told him that after that previous visitor left, she suddenly found herself unable to see the future anymore. Surprised, Brennan asked if she was referring to the figure Selner had once called the God of Death. Selner ignored the label and assured him she would answer the question he was about to ask. When Brennan asked how she could know what he would ask, Selner explained that he had only repeated questions he'd asked in the past. She had already seen those moments before, and now she was simply giving him the answers. Brennan fell silent as Selner continued. She claimed to know the identity of the man everyone wanted to find, but she refused to reveal anything about him. Frustrated, Brennan pressed why she would withhold the information. He warned that the man might be dangerous and could even pose a threat to the country. Selner answered plainly that precisely because he could be dangerous, she would not disclose his identity. She asked Brennan if he had watched the footage. The memory of the video came back to Brennan, a lone man standing against terrifying monsters without flinching, a figure whose power had protected humanity in an instant. Selner then asked a quieter, unsettling question. Would he believe her if she said this kind of rescue had happened before? Brennan, stunned, asked whether such events had truly occurred in the past. Selner nodded and said there had indeed been times when humanity had teetered on the brink of annihilation without realizing the danger. Brennan wondered whether the mysterious man might be the same being she had once described as the God of Death. Shaken, he moved for the door but paused to ask one final thing. Could Selner guarantee the man in the footage was not a threat? Without hesitation, Selner told him she could guarantee it. Relieved for the moment, Brennan nodded and told himself he would pretend he hadn't heard Selner claim to know the man personally. As he stood to leave, Selner offered him some cookies she had baked. Brennan declined with a small smile and promised he would come by again. After Brennan left, Thomas Andre entered the room. He complained that he didn't like the man in the footage and offered to teach him a lesson. Selner sighed and warned Thomas not to push the issue. He was one incident away from being disqualified as a fighter. Thomas shrugged and asked a question of his own. Selner nodded for him to speak. He wondered aloud about the accident that had spared his life. Many had died, he said, but he had survived thanks to Selner's prophecy. He wanted to know why she had saved him. Selner smiled softly and told him it was because he had done many good deeds in a past life. Thomas blinked, half amazed. Himself, Thomas Andre, the so-called UFC devil, credited with a demonic reputation. From the window he watched Brennan drive away, then asked what it was that had prompted Brennan to come all that way. Selner's eyes drifted as she answered. The man in the video had saved the world. Thomas chuckled, uncertain whether Selner was being earnest or playful. He decided that ambiguity was part of what made her interesting. Finally, Thomas asked what the hero who saved the world was doing now. Selner answered speculatively that perhaps he was simply enjoying his youth somewhere, living quietly for now. A few hours earlier, the atmosphere was electric at the middle school track as preliminaries were about to begin. Young athletes gathered, their faces set with determination, among them Cha Hai-in, focused, calm, and ready for the challenge. At the signal, the race began. Runners surged forward, some struggling halfway through and falling behind. But Cha Hai-in, driven by sheer willpower, pushed ahead and crossed the finish line first. Moments later, away from the cheering crowd, she limped quietly to a shaded spot beneath a tree. She removed her shoe and winced at the sight of her swollen, bruised ankle. Doubt crept in. She had qualified, but could she continue like this? As she sat in silence, a voice broke through her thoughts. Jinwoo appeared, calm and composed. He warned her about the risks of running while injured and shared a story of someone who had ignored such pain, living to regret it. Cha Hai-in studied him, unsure who he really was, a high school athlete. Noticing her discomfort, Jinwoo gently touched her ankle. She flinched but did not pull away. Within seconds, the swelling and pain vanished. Jinwoo smiled and encouraged her to run without regrets, reminding her that moments like these rarely come twice. As he turned to leave, she asked if they had met before. Jinwoo did not answer directly. Instead, he challenged her. If she could ever beat him in a race, even once, he would tell her everything. She pressed him further, recalling how she had seen him take first place in every preliminary race he had entered. Jinwoo told her to give up. She refused, vowing to set a new record in the preliminaries. When she did, he had to reveal the truth. Jinwoo agreed, thinking that she, younger or older, had not changed at all. Time passed. We see Jinwoo at school, spending his days with the track and field team, playing video games and studying diligently. Years later, on Christmas Eve, the city sparkled with lights and laughter. Jinwoo walked alone, his simple outfit feeling slightly underwhelming for the festive night. Passing a clothing store, a mannequin caught his eye. With a thought, dark smoke swirled around him, transforming his outfit to match the mannequin perfectly. From the shadows, Tusk appeared, nodding approvingly. "You look amazing, my liege," he said. Satisfied with his appearance, Jinwoo continued through the bustling streets. Amid the holiday chaos, soft footsteps approached. He turned, seeing Cha Hai-in trying to surprise him, but he had already anticipated her arrival. They talked casually. Jinwoo mentioned that he would be attending university soon. Hai-in raised an eyebrow. "You're going to that university. With your exam scores, you could have gone anywhere." Jinwoo shrugged. "Full scholarship, study abroad, and there's someone I just met there." A flicker of suspicion lit her eyes. "Is it a girl?" she asked. Jinwoo gave no clear answer, amused by her flustered reaction. She grinned and leaned closer. "Do you remember an old promise?" Jinwoo looked puzzled. She reminded him. It was about the race. He had promised that if she ever beat him, he would tell her everything. What he was really thinking, whether there was someone at his university, and if they had met before that first competition. Jinwoo was caught off guard but smiled and agreed. Before he could move, Hai-in stepped closer, wrapped her scarf around his neck and whispered, "If you like me, don't move." She then turned and walked toward a distant tree. Jinwoo stood still, watching. He realized he had already lost, without taking a single step. From the shadows, his soldiers reacted. Some were confused. "There are times even a king can lose like this," one muttered. Others were baffled. How did our king lose so easily? But Jinwoo wasn't listening. His gaze followed Hai-in as she walked, memories of their first meeting flashing through his mind. He smiled. Cha Hai-in reached the tree with a bright, happy smile. Seeing her, Jinwoo knew. It was time to tell her everything. He walked toward her and gave a simple order to his shadows. "Close your eyes." They embraced under the softly falling snow. In that quiet moment, nothing else in the world existed. The scene shifts to the world of repose, a quiet, timeless realm where shadow soldiers slumber, awaiting their king's command. Kaisel greets Tusk warmly, while an orc soldier bows in respect. "Good morning, General," the orc says. Tusk smiles faintly. "I'd say good morning too," he replies, "but there is no day or night in this world within the shadows." As he contemplates the calm surrounding him, Marshal Baru approaches, grinning. With theatrical flair, Baru reveals a gift, a robe crafted to perfectly resemble the hooded jacket worn by their king. Tusk's eyes widen. "How can I possibly repay you?" he asks. Baru waves him off. Tusk dons the robe, marveling at the flawless details and craftsmanship. Baru then makes another suggestion. "The orb you carry should become a staff, a weapon worthy of a general." Without hesitation, Tusk agrees. He summons the finest artisans, the dwarves. One of the dwarves bows respectfully. "We are simply honored to craft something using the sacred weapon our liege entrusted to us," he says. The camera pans to the world of repose, an infinitely vast realm where over 10 million shadow soldiers coexist. Here, every soldier lives in harmony, helping one another. Each shadow evolves alongside their king's growing power, gradually reflecting the mind of their monarch. Once beings of war and destruction, the shadows are beginning to experience life. Emotions like curiosity, friendship, and even joy now bloom among them. Some soldiers rest, some train, others engage in casual conversation. A few even argue heatedly, grabbing each other by the collar. Their once non-existent identities are beginning to take shape. In this diversity, they silently thank their king for bringing them into a world they never imagined. Soon Tusk's staff is completed. He holds it with pride as his subordinates cheer. Suddenly, shadows from the Sky Army approach. Tusk narrows his eyes. "Who are you?" They bow deeply. "We were sent by Grand Marshal Bellion," they report. At the mention of Bellion's name, Tusk straightens, preparing to recount his accomplishments during their king's battle against the Dragon Monarch in the gap between dimensions. But he is interrupted. Irritation flickers in his eyes, until he turns and sees Commander Igris. Caught off guard, Tusk stammers, quickly offering praise and loyalty. Igris simply nods. "Thank you for your loyalty," Igris says calmly. Tusk gathers himself. "Why were you looking for me?" Igris responds evenly. "It's going to begin soon." Tusk turns to the window, eyes drawn to the sky, and stops, stunned. Outside, he sees their king, Jin Wu, standing alongside Shahayan. The sight fills him with joy and pride, mirrored by the celebrations of shadows around him. Igris remained still, watching silently. His mind drifted back to the past, to the first time he had met Jinwoo. In a strange, fabricated dimension forged by the power of a monarch. His mission had been clear, to test the human who had entered that space. The previous Shadow Monarch had wanted to know one thing. Was this man worthy of becoming the next vessel of Shadow? Even then, Igris understood the gravity of his task. This was his final command. He could sense it in his liege's quiet farewell, hidden behind carefully chosen words. After forgiving the rulers, the previous king had lost all interest in endless war. The fact that he would still take an interest in a mere human meant there had to be a reason. But Igris did not question it. He never asked why. He simply obeyed, because his liege's orders were absolute. That was all he could do. So he stood alone in that fabricated dimension, prepared to test the human's qualifications, even with most of his original power sealed. He observed the world around him. In this place, people called it a dungeon. He pondered his own form, the appearance he had before meeting his liege. To recreate this exact scene, the architecture, the sensation, could only be the work of the architect, using his liege's power to build a stage so refined. Only this level of intricacy could allow a human body to slowly absorb the power of the Shadow Monarch. As Igris stepped forward and sat upon the throne, unease stirred in his chest. Could Jinwoo already be present? He could sense the human's presence behind the massive doors. Was it presumptuous to sit upon the throne? Did it make him arrogant? He stood, and just then the doors opened. Jinwoo entered, his figure wrapped in darkness. Igris watched silently. So this is the one my liege chose, he thought. He stepped forward. This was his final mission. It demanded perfection. If Jinwoo proved unworthy, Igris would not hesitate to strike him down. The battle began. At first, Igris felt disappointment. Jinwoo seemed too focused on dodging his sword to fight back. But then he noticed something. Jinwoo was not retreating. He was planning to defeat Igris with his bare hands. Impressive courage for a human, Igris thought. He liked Jinwoo's eyes, but did he have the strength to back them up? Igris charged. His blow landed, and Jinwoo crashed into the wall. Disappointing, Igris thought. How could this weak being be worthy of becoming the vessel of my liege? He decided. This ends now. Raising his sword for the final strike, he struck, but Jinwoo caught the blade with his bare hand. Igris froze. He was not shocked that Jinwoo had stopped the blade. He was stunned that Jinwoo had not given up. Even at the very end, facing certain death, he refused to surrender. Could he really be defeated by a human so much weaker than him? Then he saw it. In Jinwoo's gaze, even if just for a fleeting moment, there was a familiar flicker, a trace of his liege's will. Igris should have won. His stats were far superior, yet he lost. Was it carelessness or a miracle born from unyielding will? That moment transformed impossibility into victory. For the first time, Igris felt something unexpected. Relief, perhaps even pride. He wasn't sure if he was supposed to feel happy, but he did, because his liege's choice had been right. Over time, Jinwoo cherished Igris. Quiet, meaningful moments passed between them, strengthening their bond. To Igris, Jinwoo was not just a master, but a friend and comrade. They fought countless battles side by side. As Igris's loyalty deepened, he realized something. His longing for his previous liege had begun to fade. Over time, he fully accepted his new king. Then came the revival of the original Shadow Legion, the true army that had awaited the return of their sovereign. Among them stood Bellion, an old comrade of Igris. But the joy of reunion quickly devolved into chaos. Bellion, once stoic and composed, began showing signs of being influenced by his overly energetic and passionate roommate, Baru. When Bellion suggested placing a massive black flag atop the castle to honor their liege, Baru eagerly supported the idea. "It must be for our king," he asked. Later, Jinwoo, puzzled, asked, "Why did you even put that flag there?" The situation quickly devolved into playful bickering between the towering Grand Marshal and the overexcited Baru. But soon war returned. The battle against the monarchs began in earnest. With each clash, their liege, Sung Jinwoo, grew stronger, and with him, so did the Shadow Soldiers. Even after time was reversed using the Cup of Reincarnation, the war persisted. Nearly 30 years passed. Eventually, all enemies were annihilated, except the Legion of Destruction. When that final battle ended, victory was theirs. During the fight, a dying dragon hissed at Igris. "You were once a wing of the Shadow Army, and yet you follow a monarch who was once merely human. Have you no shame?" Igris struck the dragon down, but the words lingered. Had he forgotten his old master? The thought haunted him briefly, but then he remembered. The time he had spent with Jinwoo had been so honorable, so fulfilling, that the past had simply faded. He wondered, when had his former liege stopped appearing in his thoughts? The scene shifted outside Jinwoo's school, where he met Wu Jinshul briefly before they parted ways. After the encounter, Igris turned to his king and asked quietly, "Why didn't you tell him the truth?" Jinwoo replied calmly, "Forgetfulness is a blessing the gods granted to humans, even if that forgetfulness was crafted by men using a tool of the gods." Hearing this, Igris nodded. Yes, his king was right. There was no need to dwell too deeply on what had been forgotten, and yet Igris hadn't truly forgotten his previous monarch. Unlike Greed and Iron, who had left the battlefield behind to lead peaceful lives in the New World, Igris had stayed. He had chosen this path. His loyalty now flowed entirely to Sung Jinwoo. He was a knight, the sword of his liege, one of the wings of the Shadow Army. But now Jinwoo faced a new kind of enemy: exams. Igris stood by patiently as his king worked through a mock test. "Your score is nearly perfect," he observed. "However, the answer to question 14 is 1, not 2. Jinwoo thanked him and quickly corrected the answer. Watching this, Igris thought to himself, "Who else would assist my liege if not I?" The Grand Marshal, he's as big as a mountain. Commander Baru, intelligent in his own way, but also very insect-like. Igris sighed. "This is why it falls to me. I graduated top of my class at the Night Academy, after all." As Jinwoo double-checked his answers, he asked casually, "Did you risk your life for answer 2? Igris quickly flipped through the exam guide. "Ah, it seems my discipline is still lacking. I shall strive harder, my liege." To Igris, his king's battlefield, whether war or school, was his battlefield too. As long as his liege kept fighting, he would never leave his side. The scene then shifted to Jinwoo's father, reflecting on a strange phenomenon. The gates, massive portals that summon monsters from other worlds. He remembered the first time he had been trapped. Once a dungeon boss is defeated, one must escape the gate within an hour. But he had failed and was trapped inside the rift between dimensions. While he was in that state, the rulers contacted him, entrusting him with their power to stop the monarchs. Later, the greatest fragment of brilliant light gave him a new order: to protect the Shadow Monarch. That was why Jinwoo's father had stood by his son's side during the battles against the monarchs. He apologized for all the years Jinwoo had suffered alone. A quiet moment passed before Jinwoo spoke softly. "I missed you." His father looked at him, tears welling in his eyes. Holding back his emotions, he confessed that he had never wanted to leave. Standing tall, he told Jinwoo how proud he was of the man he had become. Even though their time together was short, he wished for just a little longer, and apologize for not being the father he should have been. The scene shifted to a modest apartment building. Inside, Jinwoo's mother and sister were gathered around the table. A younger Jinwoo ran over, calling out, "Dad!" Surprised, his father repeated the word softly to himself, almost in disbelief. Seeing his family reunited, Jinwoo was overwhelmed. Silent tears streamed down his face. His mother and father looked on, concerned. Jinwoo reassured them quietly, "I just had a nightmare." His father, watching his son, suddenly began to cry, touched beyond words, remembering the forgotten world they had endured. Time passed. Later, Jinwoo's father, Sung Il-hwan, sat in a quiet cafe, speaking with one of the ruler's vessels. He asked carefully about his son's choice. The ruler explained, "The Shadow Monarch has chosen to remain in this world. Every moment, every second, matters to him now." Then the ruler asked, "Do you plan to erase your memories of him?" Il-hwan nodded. Jinwoo didn't want anyone remembering the vanished timeline. The ruler smiled. "Like father, like son," he said softly. He continued, explaining that their role in this world would end once Il-hwan departed. "After you leave," he said, "there will be no more interference from the rulers. I have enjoyed watching how everything unfolded. It has been exciting." As a final gesture, the ruler addressed him. "The rulers wish to express their gratitude, not just to the Shadow Monarch, but to you as well, Sung Il-hwan. Is there anything we can do for you?" Without hesitation, Il-hwan made his request. "Please, erase my memories of the past." Surprised, the ruler asked why. Il-hwan explained, "It's difficult pretending I don't know. Jinwoo sees through everything. I just want to be a normal father, someone who worries about his son, not the Shadow Monarch. To me, he's my precious son." The ruler understood and nodded. "As soon as you walk out that cafe door, all memories of the vanished timeline will be erased." Rising, the ruler walked toward the exit and added gently, "You may not remember this, but I pray for your peaceful future." Time shifted to a lively cafe, buzzing with young voices celebrating a university welcome party. Sitting quietly in a corner was Jin Ho, visibly nervous. It was his first time attending such an event, and the excitement was overwhelming. He reflected on his upbringing, coming from a well-off family, used to comfort. But something about this modest restaurant, known for its frozen pork belly, sparked a strange sense of familiarity. Before he could dwell on it further, a friendly upperclassman nudged him, encouraging him to loosen up and join the fun. The senior joked, "You can lighten up around me, but watch out for the seniors. There's one guy in our major who's seriously scary. He doesn't boss anyone around, but the charisma he gives off is insane." Jin Ho, only half listening, thought to himself, "No matter how intimidating this guy is, he can't be scarier than my old man." The conversation shifted. The senior asked, "Hey, what's the name of that rising idol athlete everyone's talking about again?" "Cha Hye-in," Jin Ho replied, curious. His friend grinned. "Yeah, that guy over there. She's his girlfriend." Noticing no one was approaching their table, the senior stood to charm a group of juniors. But just then, Jinwoo unexpectedly took a seat beside them. Both Jin Ho and the senior froze. Flustered, the senior quickly excused himself to handle the other juniors, leaving Jin Ho alone with Jinwoo. Jinwoo slid a drink toward him. Jin Ho hesitated, staring at the full glass, surprised. He wasn't good with alcohol, but saying no didn't feel like an option. As he took a sip, he paused, confused. "Wait, this isn't alcohol," Jinwoo replied casually. "You can't even handle your drink. What are you worried about?" He refilled Jin Ho's glass and added, "And stop calling me Sunbai. Call me Young from now on." Jin Ho stammered, unsure how to respond. Jinwoo raised an eyebrow. "You don't want to?" Panicking, Jin Ho blurted out, "No, that's not it, Hyung Neem." Oddly, he wondered why saying that felt so familiar, and how Jinwoo even knew his name. Jinwoo lifted his glass for a toast. Jin Ho, smiling, clinked his glass without hesitation. Time moved forward. Sung Jinwoo was walking briskly across campus while speaking on the phone. On the other end, Jin Ho sounded annoyed. "Why'd you skip out on the department lounge gathering today?" Jinwoo replied casually, "I had something to do." Can you cover for me at the afternoon lecture? Jinho protested. Why me? You're the one all the professors like. Just, where are you anyway? Jinwoo answered, I'm on a field trip to the university hospital. That caught Jinho off guard. What are you doing there? That has nothing to do with our major. Jinwoo didn't answer and ended the call with a simple, I'm counting on you. Meanwhile, Lee Ju-hee walked through campus, deep in thought. She muttered to herself, I made it into a university in Seoul, but is my Busan accent too strong? She sighed. It's already hard enough trying to speak standard Korean. And why does the nursing department use so much English? As she walked, Jinwoo passed by her. Something about him caught her eye. She stops suddenly and calls out, Have we met before? Jinwoo paused and offered a faint smile. I don't think so, he said gently, then continued on his way. Ju-hee watched him walk off, confused. Why did I suddenly talk to a stranger I don't even know? She wondered before continuing on her path. The scene transitioned to the university hospital. Inside, a doctor made his way toward a private patient room. When he arrived, he requested permission from the security team to enter. They nodded and he stepped inside. The moment he saw the man in the bed, he froze. It was Go Gun-hee, the former chairman. The patient stirred, trying to sit up. Help me, would you? He asked. The doctor rushed to assist him and noticed a strange bottle on the table. What's this, Chairman? The doctor asked. Chairman Go replied, A young man came by earlier and gave it to me. The doctor was puzzled, but security maintained a tight watch over the room. Go Gun-hee continued, smiling faintly. Yes, and yet he managed to leave this here without anyone noticing. But what he told me was even more unbelievable. He explained that the young man had claimed that in a now-erased timeline, the two of them had fought monsters side by side, and this bottle was a parting gift, a thank you for the past. Then just like that, the man disappeared, like a mirage, as if he had never been there at all. Chairman Go continued, He told me that if I drink this, my illness will be cured. The doctor looked skeptical. Do you really believe that? Go Gun-hee sighed. I'm tired. Who cares if it's fake? He gripped the bottle tightly. If I don't drink this, how long do I have left? The doctor didn't answer. The chairman smiled faintly. If anything happens after I drink it, carve this on my gravestone. He fought his disease with all his strength, and now he rests here. He opened the bottle and drank every drop. Laying back, he closed his eyes and whispered softly, I should rest a bit. The doctor nodded and headed out. Call me if anything unusual happens, he said. The chairman lies in silence. Time passes. Sunlight slowly creeps into the room. As the warm rays touch his face, Go Gun-hee stirs awake. He opens his eyes. His illness. Gone. He breathes deeply and gazes out the window. With a soft smile, he murmurs, Looks like the sunlight is still too warm for winter to come. Far away in the shadows of reality, a being reflects on a past steeped in power and fear. His name is Antares. He is the first monarch, born in darkness, and the strongest of them all. He is the king who rules over all dragons, a being that embodies fear and destruction. To those who know of him, he is called the Dragon Emperor. But on an ordinary day, hidden within a dimensional rift with millions of soldiers preparing to invade Earth, he awoke. Not as a dragon, but in a human body. Staring into the mirror, Antares studies the weak-looking face before him. It disgusts him. So pitiful, he thinks. Digging through the host's memories, he uncovers the human's identity. His name is Jin Wu, an E-rank hunter from a country known as South Korea. Despite his weakness, this human constantly risked his life, refusing to give up. The reason? His mother's illness. Antares walks into the room, still deep in thought. A disease like that, something his power could erase in an instant. Then a sound interrupts him. His phone rings. He answers. A woman's voice yells from the other end, demanding to know why he hasn't shown up for the raid. It's almost time. Antares freezes. She's implying, I'm late. Is she suggesting that he, the incarnation of absolute power, is doing something as low as being incompetent? Unacceptable. With cold precision, he asks for her location. She yells again, saying she's at the front of the gate, and demands to know why he's talking so weird. Antares ignores the question. Instead, he activates his power, using her voice to trace her position. The city unfolds before him. He finds her. Cut to the woman, still confused. "What do you mean, found me?" she asks. Then the call cuts off. Suddenly, she hears a voice behind her. "I'm late. Do you still think I'm late?" She flinches. Antares stands just behind her, placing a hand on her shoulder. His voice is low, menacing. She stammers out a no, her body trembling. Nearby, a man hands Hunter Kim a coffee. Kim thanks him, then notices Jin Wu approaching. Kim greets Jin Wu casually. Antares doesn't answer. Instead, he wonders, is this man supposed to be one of my subordinates? Without a word, he strides to the canteen and asks for coffee. The man apologizes. There's none left. Without hesitation, Antares grabs the cup from the man's hand and drinks it. Saying the strong taking what the weak have, that's common sense for us monarchs. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Something feels off. Hunter Park whispers, "He's been giving me seriously creepy vibes since he showed up." Just then, a voice calls out, "You're injured again." It's Hunter J. He, pointing out cuts and bruises on his face. Antares glances at her, quietly irritated. Why are these humans so noisy, he wonders. Scene shifts to the gate. Hunter Song steps forward and claps his hands to get everyone's attention. "Let's focus. I'll be leading this raid. Anyone object?" Everyone nods. He's the highest-ranking hunter present. No one argues. In the back, Jinwoo watches everything unfold in silence. He says nothing, but a warning echoes in his mind. Something about this place feels suspicious. Then a voice announces, "It's time. Let's all enter the dungeon now." Standing before the gate, Antares narrows his eyes. This gate, it reeks of the ruler's tricks. But why do I sense the energy of a monarch coming from it? Curious, he decides to investigate it himself. "I'll be joining this raid," he tells Hunter Song. Song smirks casually. "Of course you are." Hearing that, Hunter Kim turns to Jinwoo. "Just make sure you stay behind us so you don't get hurt, all right?" Antares nods approvingly, thinking, a loyal subordinate concerned for his liege's health despite his own weakness. Without hesitation, Antares strides into the gate. Inside the dungeon, the atmosphere shifts. The air is thick with darkness. Antares' eyes gleam, but with excitement. In an instant, he rips through demonic beasts, tearing them apart with terrifying ease. The other hunters trail behind, stunned. "Is he okay today?" Hunter Kim whispers. "Are the monsters just weak, or is he different?" Hunter Song frowns. "I can't even follow Jinwoo's movements. They're too fast." Suddenly, Antares calls back, voice cold and commanding. "Why are you all dawdling? We're heading this way." Song raises a hand, trying to interject. "Hold on, we should take a vote before." But before he can finish, Antares appears in a blur and knocks him out cold. Silence. The hunters stare in shock as their strongest member collapses. Then Antares turns to the rest, his voice calm but chilling. "Anyone else want to vote?" No one speaks. "Good," he says, walking forward. "Looks like we're all in agreement." They press deeper into the dungeon, the tension thickening with every step. Someone whispers, "It's been 40 minutes. If we beat the boss now, the gate will close in an hour. That gives us 20 minutes to escape." Finally, they arrive at a colossal set of doors, massive and ancient, the entrance to a double dungeon. Nervous glances pass between the hunters. As they hesitate, Antares steps forward. Even they can sense the danger, he thinks, and they're right. "I feel immense power behind these doors." With a steady hand, he pushes them open. As the massive doors creak, Antares suddenly grabs one of the hunters by the collar and hurls him into the chamber, catching the rest completely off guard. "Why'd you do that?" the hunter shouts in confusion. Antares replies casually, "Nothing happened. That means it's safe. We're heading inside." The group hesitantly follows him in, only to find themselves in a vast stone hall filled with towering statues. At the center, a monstrous figure sits on a massive throne. One of them wonders aloud, "Could this be the dungeon boss?" Antares points toward a winged statue holding a stone tablet glowing with arcane symbols. "Anyone here know what this says?" No one answers. In a bored tone, he recites the ancient inscription, the commandments of the Kartanon Temple. Jahi nervously grabs his arm, pointing at the central statue, clearly alarmed. Before she can speak, Antries cuts her off coldly. Unhand me. Then finishing the inscription, he declares, those who break these laws shall never leave here alive. At that moment, the statue's eyes glow, and a destructive beam fires from them, catching the hunters completely off guard. Antries grins. You dare challenge me with such pitiful might? But the blast crashes into him, engulfing his body in a violent explosion. The entire chamber shakes under the impact. The hunters panic, scrambling for cover. The attack doesn't let up. Then, without warning, Antries retaliates. A massive wave of destructive breath surges from him, tearing through the statue's magic like paper. In one sweeping motion, the mighty statue is obliterated. Everyone stares in disbelief. Antries stands tall, declaring, now that is real power. But it's not over. The stone soldiers lining the hall begin to move. One by one, they spring to life and charge the hunters with terrifying speed. Antries, now fully exhilarated, launches into battle. Come at me, you arrogant puppets! In a whirlwind of force, he sends the statues flying, shattering them left and right. Debris scatters across the hall. The other hunters retreat in chaos, trying to escape the carnage, while Antries stands atop a pile of broken enemies. This was barely a warm-up. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the hall. The architect, the dungeon's creator, materializes, furious. My life's work reduced to rubble. Who are you? Before the figure can finish, Antries hurls a glowing spear through him. The architect vanishes in an instant, annihilated in a single blow. I didn't come for chatter, Antries says coldly. Enough with illusions. Show yourself. Black energy begins seeping from the central statue. A chilling voice fills the chamber. So we meet at last, monarch of destruction. Fate has brought us here. The statue crumbles, revealing a fearsome entity cloaked in shadows. Let's end this, once and for all. Antries doesn't flinch. Fine by me. With a mighty leap, he surges toward the figure. Let's see what you're made of. As their collision nears, Antries grins. This won't end quickly, but just before they clash, Jinwoo awakens in his room, drenched in sweat. He blinks, eyes darting around, disoriented. What was that? Just a dream. The scene shifts to a police station, where a young recruit, Lee Se-han, reflects on a rumor that haunted the halls since his first day. A legend whispered among officers in the Violent Crimes Division. They called him the Phantom among investigators, known for cracking every case he touched, including cold cases long thought unsolvable. His arrest rate was so high, it sounded like fiction, 200%. Criminals who encountered him were said to become meek and compliant, as if staring down death itself. His name became lore in every nearby precinct. There was even a story that he turned down promotions just to stay in the field. Who in their right mind would refuse a promotion? The recruit wondered. Lost in thought, he's approached by an officer. You must be the new recruit starting today, the man says casually. Investigator Lee Se-han, fresh to the department, but already carrying the weight of expectations. Sensing Lee's nerves, the senior officer smiles and offers him a cup of coffee. No need to be stiff. We're like family here, he says. Lee nods and explains he just met with the squad captain, who assigned him to partner with someone named Investigator Sung. At the mention of the name, the officer's expression shifts. You mean the Phantom? Lee freezes. He didn't expect that name to be real. The officer chuckles. They call him that because he appears and vanishes like a ghost. At first, it was just a nickname around here, but other precincts started using it too. Have you heard of him? The man asks, then glances down at the coffee in Lee's hand. That was actually meant for him. As they speak, the air in the room shifts. Then in walks a quiet, composed figure with a commanding presence. Lee instantly knows. This man was the Phantom. The senior officer quickly introduces Lee as the new recruit. The Phantom gives a small nod. The officer pats Lee on the back. I'll leave him to you. Train him well. Still reeling, Lee trails behind, nervously wondering, was he upset about the coffee? Breaking the silence, Jinwoo suddenly asks, "Why did you join the force?" Lee answers without hesitation, "To catch the bad guys." A faint smile crosses Jinwoo's face. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." As they leave the building together, Lee's heart races. He still couldn't believe it. He was about to learn how to hunt down criminals from the Phantom himself. Several days later, Investigator Lee looked completely drained. Seeing his state, a nearby officer asked what had happened to him. Another replied with a chuckle, "He's been chasing down small-time crooks all day with Investigator Sung." Standing nearby, Jin Wu smiled to himself. He recalled something Lee had once claimed, that he'd taken down an armed robber with his bare hands. It made training him a little more entertaining than usual. As Jinwoo focused on another case file, a voice suddenly echoed from across the room. A woman was raising her voice, pleading with an officer. She would never take her own life. She cried. The investigator calmly tried to reason with her, explaining that all the evidence pointed toward suicide. But the woman wasn't having it. She thrust her phone forward. "Look at her messages. Does this look like someone planning to die in 3 hours?" The officer replied, "Most suicides aren't planned. They happen in the heat of the moment." Their argument was cut short by Jinwoo stepping in. "Mind if I take a look at the file?" he asked. Flipping through the report, he read aloud. The woman was found in her bathtub, having bled out from a deep cut on her wrist. The knife used was discovered inside the tub, and the only prints on it were her own. Despite appearing cheerful, she had been diagnosed with depression. After reviewing the details, Jinwoo looked up. "I don't see anything unusual here, but I'll take the case, just to be sure." He then turned to the woman and introduced himself. "There are a few things I need to ask. Please come with me." The story fast-forwards to an apartment building under gray skies. Inside, moments pass in silence until a shadow forms in the dim light. Jinwoo steps into the room. He inspects the space, his sharp eyes scanning every detail. Nothing immediately stands out. Bloodstains mark the edges of the tub. Staring at them, he thinks to himself, "I used to need the body to do this, but now," he raises a hand. Shadow magic coils through the air. From the blood, a form begins to materialize. A girl, her outline trembling, appears in the room. Startled, she gasps, looking around in fear. "Don't be afraid," Jinwoo says gently. "You're free now. From pain, from death." He asks the question, "Did you take your own life? By choice?" She lowers her head. "Yes," she whispers. "What made you do it?" Jinwoo asks softly. She begins to tell her story. Later, elsewhere, a man hears his doorbell. He checks the camera and sees an investigator holding out his badge. "I'm with the police," Jinwoo says. "I'd like to ask you a few questions about your daughter." The man opens the door in a hurry. "Did you find something? What happened to her?" "Not yet," Jinwoo replies. "But I need to ask you a few things. Will you come with me?" The father nods solemnly. "If there's any chance of learning the truth, I'll help in any way I can." The scene shifts to a cafe. Across the table, Jinwoo sits calmly. He begins, "What kind of student was your daughter?" The man stiffens at the question. Jinwoo presses gently. "Was there anyone who might have held a grudge against her?" The man quickly shakes his head. "Absolutely not. She was a kind and gentle girl. The sort of girl no one could hate." His voice cracks. "I still can't believe she's gone." Jinwoo nods, his voice steady. "You must have cared deeply for her." "Yes," the man replies. "She wasn't my biological child, but I loved her as if she were my own. If only she had told me. If she had just said something." Jinwoo reaches into his folder. "During the investigation, we came across a sound file among her belongings. I'd like you to listen." He plays the audio. As the recording begins, the man's demeanor begins to shift. The voice in the recording is Jin Yi's, young and fragile, describing the torment she endured for years at the hands of her adoptive father. Though she had escaped to a faraway place, the moment he reached out to her again, she lost all hope. That was when she made the decision to end her own life. The man stares at Jinwoo, now defensive. "What's the point of playing this? If you're here to arrest me, then why not just bring backup and slap on the cuffs?" Jinwoo looks at him, expression unreadable. "You have two options. Option 1, confess everything and come with me to the station. The man scoffs. In the second. Pay the price, Jinwoo replies. The man smirks, misreading the situation. How much are you asking? Jinwoo pauses, then answers coolly, that will be enough. A chilling shift takes over the room. His voice drops low. Listen carefully. This place isn't the world you came from. This is a space I created, an imitation of the world outside. But it exists elsewhere. This is the realm of the dead. No living soul can enter without the master's permission. He stares directly into the man's eyes. And now it's your prison. The man blinks in disbelief. What are you saying? Think carefully, Jinwoo says. Can you even remember how you got here? Panic starts to spread across the man's face. The cafe is brightly lit, but completely empty. He stares at Jinwoo, his voice rising. Who are you? What is this? Some kind of nightmare. He bolts for the exit, but shadows rise from the floor, swarming him like a tidal wave. He screams, thrashes, but it's useless. Blood splatters across the walls. Eventually his screams fade. Behind Jinwoo, a faint shadow appears. It's Jin Yi, her voice soft and clear. Thank you for everything. Jinwoo turns to her. Is there anything else you'd like to say? She hesitates. By any chance, if it's not too much trouble, can I ask you a favor? Back at the police station, Jinwoo hands a small package to the friend who had believed in Jin Yi to the very end. She left this behind, he says. The name on the note was yours. I thought she'd want you to have it, he adds gently. From what we can tell, the chance of foul play is very low. The case will be closing soon. The girl looks down. So you're sure it was really suicide? Jinwoo gives a faint nod. Opening the gift, her eyes fill with tears. She whispers, thank you. As Jinwoo walks away, a thought lingers in his mind. 1 hour before she ended her life. If only that insidious message from her adoptive father hadn't reached her phone. Would those two friends have enjoyed a birthday party, just as they planned? The scene shifts to a restaurant. Sitting across the table, Jin-ho looks unusually serious. With a deep breath, he tells Ji-woo that he's made up his mind. This time, he's going to propose to Jinna, no matter what. Ji-woo stares at him, a bit taken aback. He struggles to find the right words, unsure how to even respond. Before he can speak, Jin-ho pulls out a luxurious diamond ring from his pocket and eagerly asks if Jinna would like it. Ji-woo examines the ring and replies honestly, he's not exactly an expert in that department. Jin-ho just laughs it off and says it's okay. He didn't know what she'd like either, so he came prepared with plenty of gifts. He then mentions a new building project on company land. Once Jinna finishes her medical studies, he plans to build a hospital just for her. Ji-woo pauses, then asks if that building is estimated to cost around 30 billion won. Jin-ho's eyes widen in shock. How did you know that? He asks. Ji-woo recalls a conversation from his previous timeline, one where Chi-fun told him about this very hospital. Thinking quickly, Ji-woo tells Jin-ho he doesn't need grand gestures. He's a good man, he just needs to be himself. Moved by the words, Jin-ho asks if he can give him a hug. Ji-woo tries to stop him, but Jin-ho lunges forward anyway. Later that night, Ji-woo arrives home. As he enters, he's greeted by the sight of his wife, Cha-hai-in, and their newborn son still awake. Cha teasingly asks why he went drinking, especially since alcohol doesn't affect him. Ji-woo explains he met Jin-ho, who had something important to say. Cha asks if he finally decided to propose. Ji-woo smiles and says, we'll see if he gathers the courage. He notices their baby, Soo-ho, is still lively. Cha says it's because he slept too much during the day. Suddenly, Jinwoo notices strange movements from his shadows. Bellion insists the young master must be trained in swordsmanship, while Igris argues that academics should come first. Ji-woo sighs, telling them to wait until Soo-ho at least learns to walk. Cha, a bit sarcastically, suggests maybe Jinwoo should come home early so he can witness that moment. The next day at the police station, Jinwoo enters the police chief's office and asks, did you call for me, chief? Woo Jin-chul reminds him not to interfere with other investigators' cases too much. He calls Jinwoo Hunter, but Jinwoo reminds him he's no longer one. Still, Woo says the title just feels more natural. He explains that the guardian of a recent suicide victim has gone missing, and oddly, all nearby security footage was lost. Jinwoo feigns ignorance. I don't know much about that. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Then Wu hands Jinwoo a card. Jinwoo looks confused. Wu explains, the card contains information on Chairman Go Gun-hee. With a heavy heart, Wu informs Jinwoo that the chairman is in critical condition. Later at the hospital, the chairman lies silently in bed. Jinwoo visits him. Go Gun-hee weakly gestures toward his oxygen mask. Jinwoo removes it. With a soft voice, the chairman expresses how happy he is to see Jinwoo again. He says he searched for Jinwoo for so long. Jinwoo offers a potion to heal him, but the chairman gently declines. He says he's lived long enough. His final request is to see the past world Jinwoo once told him about. He wants to remember the world and what happened there. Jinwoo hesitates, saying, "These memories might not be pleasant for you to recall." But the chairman replies, "I just want to recover my lost memories." Seeing his determination, Jinwoo reaches out to fulfill his wish. As Jinwoo grabs the chairman's hand, memories flood back into the old man's mind. He recalls meeting Jinwoo, their time working together, the Jinwoo saving hunters there. The memories rush in. He remembers tense diplomatic moments, his role as a fragment of brilliant light. He remembers dying at the hands of the Monarch of Frost and asking Jinwoo to protect humanity. Tears welling in his eyes, he thanks Jinwoo. "It was an honor to fight alongside heroes like you." In his final moments, Go Gun-hee thinks, "Even if my body turns cold in this warm sunlight, these glorious memories will remain with me and keep me warm forever." He closes his eyes. Jin Wu, watching in silence, feels a deep peace. He bows his head and says goodbye to a man who gave everything for humanity. A true hero until the very end. Fast forward, Jin Wu is quietly walking away, deep in thought. Suddenly his phone rings. On the other end, he hears his wife's voice, urgent and slightly frantic. Cha Hyen, clearly stressed, says, "Something's going on with our son." Alarmed, Jin Wu immediately asks, "What's happening?" Her response, "Suho is flying around the house right now." In the background, Cha scrambles to catch him, while Bellion and Igris stand cheering the boy on. Jin Wu blinks, trying to process what he just heard. "Flying," he repeats in disbelief. That's when he remembers something Jin Ho once joked about. "A kid from you and your wife? He'll probably be sprinting around the second he's born." Still trying to contain the situation, Cha asks, "What do I do?" Jinwoo reassures her, "It's fine. I'll teach him how to fly properly, step by step." She pauses. "You know how to fly too." The story shifts back to the hospital where doctors solemnly deliver news to Chairman Go Gun-hee's wife. Meanwhile, still on the call, Jinwoo reflects. When autumn comes, winter follows. Then spring greets the world. Everything has a beginning and an end, and a new beginning follows after the end. Hearing Cha trying to calm herself, Jinwoo gently tells her, "I'll be home early tonight." He thinks to himself, "It seems the winter for our house is still yet to come." Back at the Jinwoo household, Igris and Bellion are arguing again. Bellion insists the young master must begin aerial combat lessons immediately. Igris disagrees, claiming this only confirms Suho is destined to become a pilot in the future. Meanwhile, Cha is on the floor cleaning, exhausted, hoping her husband comes home soon, as Suho continues flying around the house. The episode ends here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for your support, and I'll see you next time.